Hello, and a very warm welcome to this deep dive. When we think about UK universities, maybe images of packed lecture halls spring to mind, students in libraries, that kind of thing.
The traditional view.
Exactly. But today, we're going to unpack a much, much bigger picture. We're looking at how these institutions are actually, well, absolutely central to the UK economy. We're talking billions of pounds, hundreds of thousands of jobs.
That's right. I mean, their educational role is obviously vital, it's paramount, but the economic footprint, it goes way beyond graduation day. They're pretty significant players in loads of sectors, often in ways that might surprise you.
And to help us navigate all this, we're really delighted to have Professor Alan Whitaker with us. He's a leading expert in education economics, a former university vice chancellor too, and he's also advised the Department for Education. So really knows this inside out. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to hear. It's such an important topic to get into.
Great. So our mission today, really, is to get a proper handle on the scale, the scope of the economic contribution UK universities make, and maybe challenge some assumptions about just how vital they are. So perhaps we could kick things off by, setting the scene. What sort of scale are we talking about economically?
Well, the scale it's genuinely massive. Figures for 2023 suggest UK universities generated over 130 billion for the UK economy.
Wow, 130 billion.
Billion, yes. I mean, just to put that in context, that's roughly comparable to the entire UK agricultural sector. It's huge. And beyond that monetary value, they support something like over 700,000 jobs right across the UK.
700,000 jobs.
Yeah. And crucially, this isn't just, a London or Southeast thing. Universities often act as really significant economic anchors in towns and cities everywhere.
Okay, right. So it's clearly way more than just the tuition fees and the government funding people might think of first.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the whole ecosystem they create around them. They commission massive construction projects, new labs, student accommodation, libraries. That's jobs right there. Then there's the innovation side. There are hotbeds for it, leading to tech spin-outs, new companies based on university research.
Right, taking the research out into the market.
Exactly. They also have these really vital partnerships with hospitals, driving medical progress. International collaborations boost trade. And then you can't forget the students themselves. Their spending power on rent, food, shops, entertainment, it has a really big knock-on effect locally.
That makes sense. Now, one area that always seems to spark debate is international students. We hear lots of different views. What's the sort of core economic reality there?
Well, from a purely economic perspective, they're an incredibly important engine. On average, each international student is estimated to contribute something like £100,000 to the UK economy over the course of their studies.
£100,000 per student.
Roughly, yes.
Yeah.
That covers their tuition fees, obviously, but also accommodation, living expenses, spending in the local community. It's a really substantial inflow of money.
Okay. But what about the concern you sometimes hear that maybe they're taking places away from UK students? Is there truth to that?
That's largely a misconception, actually. The reality is quite different. The income generated from international student fees is actually crucial for subsidizing the education of domestic UK students.
Ah, right. So it helps keep the costs down elsewhere.
It does. It also provides really essential funding for research activities, maintaining labs, libraries, other facilities. Honestly, without that income stream, many departments, especially in STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, maths, they'd face, well, very serious financial problems.
So that could actually end up impacting the opportunities for UK students, too.
Potentially, yes. It could limit course availability or investment in resources.
So thinking about policy then, if there were moves to significantly cut international student numbers, the impact wouldn't just be on university balance sheets.
No, absolutely not. The ripple effect would be much wider. Universities would lose vital income, yes, but so would the local economies where these students live, work part-time, and spend their money. Think about cities like Newcastle or Cardiff or Glasgow, places where the university is a huge employer and attracts many international students. They'd feel a significant negative impact.
Okay, that's clear. Let's shift gears slightly to research. The UK has this, world-class reputation for university research. What's the funding situation like, and how does that research connect to the economy?
The UK does have a very strong research base, absolutely. It's a major national asset. But securing funding, that's a constant challenge. It's incredibly competitive. And universities have faced various pressures in recent years. Things like, well, The complexities around Brexit and the initial uncertainty over access to EU research funds.
That was the Horizon program issue, wasn't it?
That's the one. Now, thankfully, the UK has rejoined Horizon, which is great news. But that period of being outside it, it definitely caused disruption and uncertainty for researchers.
And how does all this research conducted in university labs actually translate into sort of tangible economic benefits? What does it do for the UK?
Oh, the impact is incredibly broad. University R&D is really the wellspring for breakthroughs across so many sectors. We see it in new medicines, advancements in AI, developing clean energy tech, finding new materials. The list goes on.
Like the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine during COVID, that felt like a very direct example.
Exactly. A perfect, high-impact example of university science making a massive real-world difference, and quickly. What's interesting, though, or perhaps worrying, is that despite these successes, the UK's overall investment in R&D, as a percentage of GDP, still lags behind competitors like Germany or South Korea. We punch above our weight in some ways, but perhaps don't invest enough to maintain that long term.
Hmm. That's an important point. It feels like universities are walking a bit of a tightrope sometimes. They're mostly charities, right, with a public mission.
That's right, their core status is charitable.
But the financial realities seem to push them towards acting more like businesses. Is that a fair assessment, this sort of balancing act?
It is a continuous balancing act, yes. Their fundamental driver is that public mission education, research, advancing knowledge. But the way funding has shifted over the years, particularly government funding, means they've had to become much more, shall we say, entrepreneurial to ensure they remain financially stable.
So that involves things like,
Well, actively building their institutional brand, investing heavily in international student recruitment, looking for diverse income streams like commercial partnerships, conferencing, consultancy. It's about not having all your eggs in one basket.
and the big one in that funding picture, for UK students at least, is tuition fees, isn't it?
Absolutely central.
Mm.
And the key issue there is that the cap for UK undergraduates has been frozen at £9,250 since way back in 2017.
Right. And inflation has obviously done its thing since then.
Massively. So the actual value of that $9,250 fee has eroded significantly. The practical upshot is that many universities are now effectively running their UK undergraduate programs at a loss. They cost more to deliver than the fee brings in.
That doesn't sound sustainable long term.
It raises very serious questions about the sustainability of the current model, yes. Something likely has to give eventually.
Okay. Now, sometimes you hear about this town versus gown tension, a kind of separation between the university and its local community. But can universities actually be a positive force for regional development, especially thinking about the leveling up agenda?
Oh, unequivocally, yes. While you might find historical examples of tension, the modern reality is overwhelmingly positive. Universities are crucial anchor institutions in so many places. They're often among the biggest employers in their town or city. We've seen really significant regeneration and economic boosts in places like, say, Middlesbrough or Stoke-on-Trent or Dundee, directly linked to university investment and presence.
How so? What do they bring?
Well, apart from direct employment, they foster a climate for job creation, they support local startups, often spinning out from the university itself, and they add hugely to the cultural life and vibrancy of the region. They're key drivers for leveling up, really.
One challenge often mentioned, though, particularly for regions outside London and the Southeast, is keeping graduates there after they finish their studies. Brain drain, basically.
That is a genuine challenge, yes. Graduate retention is crucial. But there are things that can be done. Proactive steps, like supporting graduate enterprise zones specific areas, offering support for grad startups.
Yeah.
Ensuring there's affordable housing is another big factor. And fostering strong regional innovation hubs, linking universities with local businesses, can create the kind of high-skilled jobs that encourage graduates to stay and build their careers locally.
Makes sense. Finally, then, universities seem to operate in quite a complex political climate these days. They face various pressures, don't they? Policy debates, political narratives.
They certainly do. They're subject to a whole raft of political pressures right now. You've got ongoing debates around free speech, so-called culture wars on campus. There are government immigration policies that directly affect international student recruitment, which we've discussed. And underpinning it all are those persistent pressures on funding, efficiency drives, questions about value for money.
And is there sometimes a bit of a disconnect where they're told to be more financially independent, but then criticized if they act too commercially?
I think that's fair to say. There can be a tension there. Universities are encouraged, often pushed towards financial self-sufficiency and finding commercial income streams, but then they could face criticism, perhaps in the media or from politicians, for behaving in precisely those commercially minded ways needed to achieve it. It's a tricky line to walk.
It really does make you wonder if the true value, the sort of multifaceted contribution of higher education is always fully appreciated in, public discussions or political debates.
I think that's a very valid question. Sometimes it feels like there is a disconnect. You hear politicians talk a lot about the need for skills for the economy and about driving economic growth. Both vital, of course, but the absolutely crucial role universities play in delivering both of those things, not just as teaching institutions, but as these vital innovation ecosystems, perhaps that gets overlooked sometimes.
This has been incredibly insightful, really getting under the bonnet of university economics. If you had to summarize the core message for us, what would it be?
I suppose the central takeaway is that UK universities aren't just educational bodies. They are a fundamental pillar of the entire national economy. They generate huge financial activity, they support a vast number of jobs right across the country, and they're critical engines for the innovation we need for the future. Their value goes far, far beyond the lecture theater.
And looking ahead, what's the critical point we need to remember?
It's just vital that we recognize this contribution and continue to invest properly in our universities. It's not just about education spending. It's an investment in the UK's long-term prosperity in science, in health, in industry, across the board.
Okay. And maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. If the huge economic contributions and the wider societal value of UK universities continue to be perhaps underappreciated or underfunded, what might the UK actually stand to lose in the long run? Something to think about. Professor Whitaker, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. It's been fascinating.
It has been my pleasure entirely. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the economic engine that is the UK university system. Thank you for watching Westferry Times.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.